print.
Okay, moving on to resolution 2015-12, eminent domain, K-14 highway improvements.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Richards.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Peterson. All those in favor? No, wait.
Aye.
That's wrong. Yeah, that's the roll call. Manny, can you take a roll call, please?
Richard,
Yes.
Gingler,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Luttrell,
Yes.
Brown,
Yep.
Audi,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes. Okay, moving on to formal action. KMA, voting delegations.
I move that we appoint Lynn as director, #1 voting delegate, and Henry Eiler as alternate to the KMEA Board of Trustees.
Second. The first and second, that we appoint Glenn as first and Henry Eiler as second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Okay, now we got special events license.
I kind of have a question on that.
What's that?
Well, a few years back, VFW used to have their meetings down there. Once a year, we had our dues meeting down there with all the families that belong to VFW. And we played baseball and used the white building and everything. And we did have beer down there, and the city kind of put up the deal that you couldn't take any liquor down there. And we did have some of that. So that kind of ruined our party for the family for get together.
Well,
Thank God you got on council, we can fix that now. I said, thank God you got on council, we can fix that now.
well, here a few years ago, the Eagles Club started having their lake party down there, and they had to get a special event license, and had to contain it within a beer garden to have it down there. That went over real well.
Yeah, they do the tennis courts.
Yeah, tennis courts.
We use the
Where they
tennis
had
courts
it.
for that. Yeah, so we've opened that back up here a couple years ago. I think the Eagles were the first
Yeah,
to do
Eagles had
that.
it.
You know, I don't know how this come about, but you know, at the lake, and most people probably don't realize, you can't have alcohol at the lake. You can have 3-2 beer, but you can have it anywhere. Why can't we just do that in the park? Good Lord, it's not gonna hurt anybody.
That's the problem though, this doesn't say it's just gonna be beer.
Alcohol, yeah. But I mean, why can't we do like the state lake and say you can have 3-2 beer, and why they go with that? You get caught with something stronger, and you're.
But chief, step up and say something.
You could, I don't know legally where
I'm not sure.
I don't think you can do that.
I have no idea about the state's representation on 3-2 beer. I've never heard that.
Well, that's the way it is at the lake. You can't have strong beer at the lake. You can have 3-2, and I'm sure nobody takes strong beer.
I was gonna say, how would you know?
That's the law, that's the law. I mean, I don't care what we do with this, but I don't see why at some point we have to designate the park as a beer-free zone, you know?
I think the point of that original ordinance was so that you're not having people going down there just drinking
Oh, yeah.
every weekend. I mean,
Right, it becomes a maintenance issue for us because you're gonna have cans and
Well,
whatever
that-
else down there at that point. So we try to avoid that since we do have camping in the park.
That's a little
and all
different,
that,
you
so.
know?
I move that we approve the special events license for Maryland Rogers.
I'll second that.
It's been moved by Miller for first and Matt for second. And we approve the special event license. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
Okay, 2-4. 4-2, whatever you want to call it.
What? Somebody's not voting. Somebody
Rick
not
didn't
vote.
vote. Rick didn't vote.
Did you not vote?
Yeah, but
Then it can't be 42.
That's fine.
okay, 5-2, okay, shit.
Who was the other one who opposed?
I'm trying. Okay, moving on to the CDBG housing grant demolition bids. Any questions, any comments?
How's this compare to the last bid we had?
We're about, what, 8,000 lower, I think,
I
for
think
the.
so.
Well, definitely, a
We
little bit
lost
less,
a little
about
bit.
48.
And you're thrilled to death with it?
No.
You're not? Still at like 40?
No, I'm not. I'm disappointed that they're as high as they are, but, and it's not what they've seen in other communities, but our contractors are busy, which is a good thing, but, and I couldn't beg my dad to bid on it. So, we didn't have many bids, but,
So by adjusting the grant the way we're doing it on the funding, that means that you're gonna reduce the amount for the rehabs
Rehab.
in order to demolish the ones that have requests in.
not all the ones that have requests, no, but we did, yes, we are having to take some from the rehab, which I am disappointed in. But we had wrote the application to do 8 demos. I was naively hopeful that we could do 12 demos, but we'll only be able to do the 8. So we have to move that amount of funds from rehab over. On the upside, I know we have pretty close to that amount extra in rehab because we have insurance money that has come in because of the storms that we didn't know about. So
Same thing we did.
hopefully it'll equal out.
So what's your thought? Are you willing to accept this?
Yes, yes. And I'm gonna do it with a smile and be happy that we're at least getting started. I'm hopeful that this is gonna go well and you all will be very happy and that we will be able to apply again because we just have that many people interested. Which is great, because even now, in some of the communities that regional planning is helping, they're having a hard time getting enough interest. We don't have that problem, so.
So, but this is just for 4 houses? Is it-
8
Oh,
houses.
8 houses.
Yeah.
Those are the houses.
And if you approve it tonight, he is starting quickly, like I think, what was it, the 13th or 15th, here pretty soon, so,
Yeah, he was quick. Yeah, I think it's $5,000
per house.
per house.
I move that we approve the demo bids from Deal Enterprises in the amount of $40,300 for all 8 demo units.
I'll second it.
Moved by Councilman Miller and seconded by Councilman Richards, that we accept the CDBG housing grant demolition bid. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
6-1. Okay, moving on to the trencher compactor purchase. From Foley Equipment in an amount of $15,300. Have any discussion?
Yes.
I got a question. Back in December, they requested a boring machine and we passed that with a binder to keep from tearing up the streets. And now we have to have a compactor to pack the dirt when they tear up the street. And said the flow is getting too high. Well, I kind of researched a little bit of this and kind of give you an idea. A ditch 36 inches wide, 50 foot long, 6 foot deep. That would take 30 yards of flow, clear to fill the thing up, and it only costs $500. Where if you taken in this same measurements, put a compactor on there, And these 30 yards of concrete, you could probably get them in there in 45 minutes to an hour. Or if you do the compacting, it would take, with the way I watched it work, it'd probably take you a big part of the day or a day and a half. So the way I look at it, if you're gonna do anything like that, I think it'd be better to rent the thing than to buy it. And that way you wouldn't have to maintain it.
Well, I agree with Bob. I think we got too much equipment that gets very little use when we could hire it done and not cost any more and not spend 3 days doing a 2-hour job. So I'm thoroughly opposed to this, because we did get that boring machine just for that reason. So I don't know why we gotta pack dirt. It don't make any sense to me. You can hire somebody to come in there and bore that in if you need it. And I think, Ronnie, you're finding that that's a good way for you to go. And I mean, on a big job, get bored.
I'm hiring my trenching done mainly because our trencher is not
Yeah.
good enough to take it.
But you can hire it done instead of buying a $150,000 trencher, whatever it is, you know?
Well, that's where we're headed right now.
Yeah, so I think we need to look at a lot more of that as far as what the equipment we got sitting around and how long it takes us to do something. Just hire it done. So you can do what you want, but I'm opposed to this.
You opposed to it?
Yep.
Okay, just checking. Okay.
Is there anybody that's gonna speak from the city that's gonna advocate for it?
Yeah, Jim's not here tonight. He had to be, he had a conflict with a family event he had to be at. Yeah, the reason why he wanted to do this is because, in his estimation, actually owning this would be a lot cheaper in the long run than continuing to rent these pieces of equipment. I mean, he indicated to me in about 2 years, he would save what it would cost on rental, that if we continue along with the same rate that we've been doing. So basically, it's to save time and money. That's, in this case, we think it would actually be cheaper with all things considered. So that's.
Well, you're buying a used machine, and
Yep.
you don't know how long that thing's gonna last until you have to buy another.
Right, you don't. The new is gonna be a lot more expensive, so, you know, we're looking at something that is available at a used price, so, and that's
Taking
why.
chances on when you buy a used machine.
Yeah.
When we figure
no
a
question.
project, do we ever consider the man hours put into it and how that adds to the cost of?
Sure, but, you know, just comparing machine for machine here, though, renting versus purchasing a used machine. Yeah, a new one, it would take much longer to, you know, I agree, you know, it would take much longer payback on that. But on this, which is available, you know, it's a used machine, could it break down, yeah, it could. A new one could too, but,
Yeah.
you know, but I mean, that's it, I mean, we know this is available. So
9
that's-
times out of 10 though, new one, you got a guarantee on it.
You gotta guarantee, yeah, you get a warranty that'll last you on that, yeah. So there are pluses and minuses. I mean, that's the other thing. You could purchase a new one here, but that's gonna be pretty expensive to do. So that's why we're not bringing that to you.
I mean, I would have felt a lot more comfortable if he made, you know, if, I realize Jim isn't here to, you know, back himself up, but I would have felt a lot more comfortable if he could have come up with some figures as far as how many projects he thinks we're gonna be doing, and what it would cost to rent that equipment over all those projects.
Yeah, we can do that.
And
Well, he contacted me
Yeah.
Saturday, and he didn't know how many projects I had.
I would move that we would table this until the next meeting, and then Jim's here, maybe he could get us one.
I second that one.
It's been, my motion was made to, table this until next meeting when, Jim can be here to explain everything. Councilman, Miller, and seconded by Councilman Peterson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I do have one thing to say on this issue. I'm wondering why is the department head the only one that knows how to speak for their department? Did he not have a foreman or somebody that's been working on this with him that could have been here in his stead?
Yeah, I don't know if he could have got somebody here tonight or not. I mean, he told me yesterday he couldn't be here, so. So I don't know if he's, I know they were doing some interviews today too, so I don't know. But if he couldn't get somebody here also, so. Yeah, and I'd rather have him do that.
Okay, moving on to the power plant heater exchanger. I recommend the council approve purchase for IPS in the amount of $69,987. Any discussion?
This is installed.
No, the mechanic should have to install it.
Personnel at the, you're talking about personnel at the plant?
Right, right.
I'll make the motion that we approve this, purchase of a heat exchanger from IPS in the amount of $69,987.
First by Councilman Otting, that we accept the bid, and seconded by Lloyd Latrell. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Rick, can I interrupt you for a second here? As long as
Yeah.
we're in the electric department here. Ronnie's got his new secretary, with him here.
Yeah,
tonight.
somebody said they wanted to meet her.
Yeah. So we thought we'd
This is
introduce
Eve
her
Flint.
to you. Been with us for a couple months?
A month.
A month, then? Okay.
Does she have a name, Ronnie?
Eve,
was.
Yeah.
Eve Flint.
Oh, I didn't hear you.
Well, you're getting old, you know, I can understand
You're
that.
right, you're right.
Okay. I'd like to make a statement on that heater. I think Henry talked a little bit about getting some oil checked on that engine up there. We may have to be changing it. We don't know yet, but we've got a rough figure of $11,000 to change that oil in that engine. So there's some more costs coming associated with that heat exchanger. But we're waiting until we get the test back on that oil before we make that decision. So.
Nice to meet you, Eve.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah.
Did you get all the water drained out of Crane Cave?
Got all the oil out of it.
You left the water in there?
Of that.
Okay, moving on. Now we move on to the North Campus street change order. Recommend the council approve attached North Campus Street project amount of $28,500. Any discussion?
Can we have some explanation of what exactly this?
Yeah, that's why Stuart's here. You might want to.
Certainly. We had a pre-construction meeting with the contractor, probably 3 weeks ago or so, and he brought up some things for us to consider. And Cliff was out of town on the day that we had that meeting, but a couple of his guys sat in on the meeting. We talked about the pros and the costs of the items that are on your list. When we put this project together, we put it together in a fashion that is very consistent with what the city does, with a couple of exceptions. We put welded wire fabric in the concrete paving, throughout the concrete paving. And then during the bidding process, I had a couple of contractors that inquired about using non-reinforced dowel jointed pavement. That's item number 3 on the list. And so I made that an equal method of reinforcing the concrete streets. Some contractors are set up to use dowel baskets or non-reinforced dowel jointed concrete. Some contractors are not set up to use that. The contractor that is our low bidder is not set up to do that. Click and I talked about the non-reinforced dowel jointed concrete. We feel like it's something that we would like to try as a city. On the 10-inch pavement, it is KDOT standard to use non-reinforced dowel jointed concrete. What that means is across the contraction joints, Smooth bars are placed every 2 feet or so. I don't have the details with me. And those are intended to carry the load from panel to panel, and it also allows the panels to expand and contract without breaking concrete. And it is a KDOT standard. So that would be item number 3.
With no other reinforcing in the concrete.
With no other
itself.
reinforcing in the concrete. That is correct. And these are pretty big bars. They're 1-inch dowels on 10-inch concrete.
Is that what they were using when they did 81 Highway? I noticed they set those things.
Yes.
Now, recently though, don't they just pour it out of a dump truck and not put any reinforcement in it?
Most of KDOT's streets still use dowel baskets.
Do they?
Yes, they do. Now, KDOT is experimenting with all kinds of different paving methods, and I anticipate they'll continue to do so. But the standard for KDOT is non-reinforced dowel joint.
Well, I always wondered what those were.
So that would be item number 3 on your list. Item number 1, seal all the joints. In the past, the city has not sealed contraction joints, and we put the bid package together similarly to what the city has done in respect to sealing joints, with the belief or the thought that it was more expensive than what the city wanted to tolerate. In my opinion, we have a lot of streets in the North Campus that this contractor will be constructing, and in my opinion, the $25,000 is a very reasonable cost for sealing those joints. The way they will seal them is they will clean the joints, and then they will pour them the full depth of the saw cut with hot asphalt joint sealer. The reason the full depth is important is one of the knocks against joint sealing is a lot of times it gets pulled out by a snowplow or something like that. If they seal the full depth of the saw cut, the chances of that joint sealant getting pulled out is much less. So, my opinion, the $25,000 is a good investment. I would also like to add that some contractors look at the costs of joint sealing and other specific things based on the number of guys they have to have do the work, and for some contractors it is very expensive to do that. So I feel like we're getting a very fair shake on item number 1. Item number 2 is install expansion joints with smooth dowels in the 7-inch concrete. We have had some instances in town where unsealed streets have grown over time. And what I mean by that is dirt gets down in the contraction joint and it slowly pushes on the streets. A pretty good example of that would be North Hersey, where the city has gone in and ground up north of 17th, right as you go around the corner headed towards Walnut. There's been a bump that's been at the end of the concrete street, and then the city will go in and grind it, and a few years later the bump will reappear and we grind it down again. And what that is the expansion of the concrete street. And with expansion joints, we will eliminate that problem. Once again, for a minimal cost, I think that is a worthwhile expense. Then item number 4 is changing from a 6644 paving mesh to a 6666. That doesn't mean a whole lot to most people. The 4x4 is 4 gauge reinforcing steel in the mesh, and the 6.6 is 6 gauge reinforcing steel. Our contractor has had a bad experience, or a couple of bad experiences with the 4 gauge reinforcing steel, and it becomes complicated, but what they have said is that the heavier reinforcing mesh does not allow enough give as the concrete contracts, and they have had some uncontrolled cracking in their concrete if we're using the heavier paving mesh. They have used the 6666 paving mesh on countless projects, as we have too. We've used both. on projects in the past. For the cost savings that they are offering, in my opinion, it would be worthwhile to use the paving mesh that they are familiar with, that they've had very, very good luck with in our streets, in the 7-inch streets up there.
Up north in some of our newer streets, we've had a lot of cracking. What does that do to, and there's no reinforcement in those streets?
That's correct. That's one of the reasons we're calling for reinforcing in the streets. Concrete's gonna crack sometimes regardless of whether you have reinforcing in it or not.
But you can control the.
You control it a little bit, but you keep those cracks really tight with reinforcing steel. So that's one of the real benefits of either mesh or rebar or whatever you're using. Rebar in a project like this becomes very expensive because of the labor of tying it all. So that's why we use either mesh or we use those dowel baskets.
Even sealing the joint, keep that from happening,
Yes.
because freezing and thawing.
Yes. And after we do this project, I've talked to Click, and I think that this is a good testing ground for, you know, what the city has done in the past, because we have city installed concrete up there, and we have a few different things that we're trying, and we know these will work, but we can see how they last compared side by side. So I think it's a good testing ground that we have up there. And we can see if joint sealing causes any maintenance issues. I know the city has sealed some streets in the past, but what they do most often now is not, and it's mostly due to the cost.
Does this give us any kind of a warranty, so to speak?
There's a 1-year warranty, and we will have to evaluate if there is any cracking on a panel. We will have to evaluate whether it makes sense to replace that panel or to leave it and seal the crack that is present. In some cases, it makes perfect sense to remove a panel and replace it. In some instances, you do more damage to the adjacent panels by taking the old concrete out, doweling into the adjacent panels, and then pouring the new one.
Well, when they run the new concrete, will they take cylinder test for
Yes.
compaction
Yeah, well,
or combustion?
we will be doing both of those. We will be doing
Okay.
compaction testing on the dirt, and then we will also be taking cylinders on the concrete.
Well, I think this project, we want it to shine, we want it to last, and I think we need to do it right.
Is that a motion?
Yeah. Yeah, I would move.
Have I answered everybody's questions?
Yeah, that's fine anyway.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second both.
Motion made by Councilman Richards, seconded by Councilman Audi, to accept the North Campus street change order. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, no that. Okay, moving on, we have another closed session.
Mr. Brown. 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
10.
Okay, for 10 minutes, for all the government body, City Attorney Cheney, and Administrator Glenn. Anybody else got to include that too?
Nope.
Just check. Okay. Have a motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Who's faster, Tony or Matt Dillon?
Matt Dillon. Guarantee you.
No one else,
You ever see that one? Maybe just kidding.